I'll be on my way.
If you've ever put a cell phone to your ear, you should listen to what neurosurgeon Dr. Keith Black has to say.
There's no way to say that cell phone use is safe. I think that the public has a right to know that there could be a potential risk. The public generally assumes that if one is selling something on the market, that we have had assurances that that device is safe.
To be clear, Dr. Black's message is at odds with headlines from the largest international study on cell phones and cancer. Their conclusion: little or no evidence cell phones are associated with brain tumors. But if you look just one layer deeper into the appendix of that same study, and you'll see something unsettling. Turns out participants in the study who used a cell phone for 10 years or more had doubled the rate of brain glioma, a type of tumor. And keep in mind, cell phone use in the United States has only been popular for around 15 years. Back in 1996, there were 34 million cell phone users. Today, nearly 300 million in use, according to industry figures.
Environmental factors take decades to see their effect, not a few years.
So if it may take decades to get a clearer answer, what can we say about cell phone safety now? Scientists here in San Jose, California, are trying to answer that very question.
So one of the things we have to do first is literally put the brain inside the head.
Exactly. So it's very light now.
The FCC requires all cell phones emit below 1.6 watts per kilogram of radiation.
Well, let's put some brain to it.
In order to test for that, scientists here try and mimic the human brain with salt, sugar, and water.
Let me show you precisely how they do this test. This is a model. This is supposed to approximate the human skull, an adult male. This is my phone that we've actually attached there. It's connected at the angle that most people would speak with. And inside over here, very important, this bubbly liquid inside, that's what represents liquid brain. What's going to happen is the phone is making a call. After a period of time, this device is going to come over here and start to measure radiation at all sorts of different points in the brain. After that, they're going to take all of those numbers, basically put it on a computer screen, and tell us where the hot spots are and just how high the levels got.
My cell phone measured within FCC limits, but the whole process was, well, surprisingly low tech. And what about different size skulls or children?
In children, their skull is thinner, their scalp is thinner, so the microwave radiation can penetrate deeper into the brain of children and young adults. And their cells are dividing at a much faster rate, so the impact of the microwave radiation can be much larger.
But there have been no studies on children in cell phone safety.
And here's something else that might surprise you. The cell manufacturers themselves actually advise against putting the cell phone right next to your head or really anywhere in your body. Take a look, for example, with the iPhone 4. The safety instructions specifically say when using the iPhone near your body for voice calls, keep it at least 15 millimeters or 5/8 of an inch away from your body. And what if you're a BlackBerry user specifically? They also have safety guidelines. In this case, they say keep it 0.98 inches or 25 millimeters from your body, meaning your head or really even your pocket.
Dr. Keith Black has been talking about this longer than many, but the voices joining him are becoming louder and more prominent. The city of San Francisco pushed for radiation warning labels on cell phones. The head of a prominent cancer research institute sent a memo to all employees urging them to limit cell phone use because of possible risk of cancer. And the European Environmental Agency has pushed for more studies, saying cell phones could be as big a public health risk as smoking, asbestos, and leaded gasoline.
The Federal Communications Commission, the FCC, they set the guidelines for how much radiation a cell phone can emit, and they say cell phones are safe. But how can they be so sure? Keeping them honest, we decided to come here to try and find out for ourselves, but they declined an on-camera interview.
The type of radiation coming out of your cell phone is called non-ionizing. It's not like an X-ray, but more like a very low-powered microwave oven.
What microwave radiation does, in the most simplistic term, is very similar to what happens to your food when you put your food in a microwave oven. It's essentially cooking the brain.
But based on their past statements, the FCC isn't convinced there's a real risk and maintain they, quote, do not endorse the need for consumers to take any precautions to reduce exposure. Dr. Sanjay Gupta, CNN, San Jose, California.
7 Eastern.
Keeping them honest tonight, chilling new questions about cell phones and cancer, including this. If they're so safe, why do manufacturers recommend holding them more than a half inch away from your head while you talk? Who does that? I certainly have never done that. If they're so safe, why does one top neurologist who deals with brain tumors daily have this to say?
I don't think any mother, if they knew that there was a 2.5-fold increase in their kid developing brain cancer when they were 40 or 50, would allow their kids to use cell phones.
The thing is, they haven't even tested for kids with cell phones. Notice you said if mothers knew. The fact is there are plenty of studies out there that show cell phone use is safe. But getting back to if, what if the research is incomplete because many cancers take a long time to develop and cell phones haven't been around that long? Recently, the National Institutes of Health released a study showing that using a cell phone changes the chemistry inside your brain. What if it does more than just that? Now, we warn you now, there are no answers yet, but as 360 MD Sanjay Gupta found out, there are serious people asking life and death questions. Sanjay, this piece is really fascinating and terrifying, I gotta say. These cell phones haven't been around long enough, it seems like, to really have an accurate sense of whether or not they're safe.
That's the issue, is that, there haven't been studies to conclusively show that they're dangerous, but there's not studies out there to show that they're conclusively safe either. The problem is the ubiquity of these, Anderson, and how much we're using them. Even some of the earlier studies, regular cell phone use would be defined as, a couple of hours per week for 6 months. Who uses their cell phones like that? I mean, most people have it planted to their head many hours of the day and for many years to come. So
and the whole idea that, in the fine print of the owner manual and stuff, it says you're supposed to hold it, I don't know, 5/8 of an inch away from your head or something. No, who does that? I mean, I keep mine pressed up. My ear gets warm. I have it pressed against my head so much.
Yeah, I don't think most people read the little fine print there. But I think what's even more impressive about that is that as much as, you hear from the FCC saying, look, no precautionary measures are necessary whatsoever, the manufacturers themselves, Anderson, are saying, look, 5/8 of an inch away from your ear. I mean, that's impractical, but all away from your body in general. It's not even in your front pocket, next to your bone marrow, next to your reproductive organs.
Wait, you're not even supposed to have it in your pocket?
Well, they say, you're supposed to keep it 5/8 of an inch away from your body. So I mean, if you had it in your pocket, it's probably right up against your skin. So it's, you're supposed to put in these holsters, again, which very few people use, or in a separate bag and carry it with you.
Yeah, I look like enough of a geek as it is. I'm not sure I need a holster, but I mean, I gotta say, after seeing this report, I'm gonna get one of those earpieces and try to use that.
Yeah, well, I was going to ask you if you actually use one. I use mine all the time. When we travel overseas. I don't know if you've seen me with this in my ear. I've actually bringing one by your office too. We're sending one to your office, so you're going to have one as well. Look, it's one of these things, Anderson, and I don't want to sound like a conspiracy theorist or even histrionic about this, but it is a pretty easy thing to do, to use the earpiece. And again, manufacturer from the cell phones themselves recommend keeping it away from your ear. A wired earpiece is a good way to do that. So I've been using it for years now. Who knows what 20 years from now we're actually going to know about this?
Right.
But if the results come back that it was a problem, this is pretty protective.
Well, there's also, at least in my thinking, in the past when I thought about this, and in fact I was just talking about it in the office today when we were talking about your piece, is that I sort of assume, like, well, look, everyone uses cell phones. They must be tested and safe and stuff, but clearly they just haven't been around long enough, and just because everybody is using them, it doesn't mean that everybody, that there's not going to be some terrible news about these things down the road.
We find out things years down the road. Leaded gasoline, asbestos, even cigarettes. It takes time for some of that data to come back. And you saw how decidedly low tech, I mean, the safety testing is. I mean, I was surprised. I thought it would be much more sophisticated. It's not. And Anderson, let me even tell you, I mean, I got my cell phone right here. That number that you saw in the piece, 1.6, is sort of the absorption rate.
Right.
If you're on your phone and you're having a bad signal and you're having a hard time hearing somebody, that means your phone is setting off even more radiation at that time, trying to get you a better signal. So that number is not constant. If you have a bad signal, if you're overseas and having a difficult time hearing somebody, you're actually getting more radiation at that time. So these numbers really pop up and down.
And what is it about the microwave radiation that could potentially cause problems?
That's a good question. I mean, so ionizing radiation is one end of the spectrum. That's X-rays. Everyone agrees in large amount that can be a problem. Non-ionizing is more like a low-powered microwave oven. You know what a microwave oven can do at high powers? It can cook food. The question is, at low powers for long duration, Could this be acting like a little microwave oven next to your head and causing tissue to heat up and possibly causing damage that way? We know for the first time this year from a study at the NIH that cell phones have an impact on the brain. It changes the way the brain metabolizes around the area of the cell phone. So there is an impact. The larger question is, what is that heating and that increased metabolism going to do in the long run? Could it lead to cancer? That's what a lot of people are trying to figure out.
I've actually gotten a rash at one point in my ear from my cell phone, from like the heat of it. I'm completely going to switch now based on what you're saying and your report. You also told me during the break that this Dr. Black treated the lawyer Johnny Cochran. And what did he tell you about why he thought Johnny Cochran got a brain tumor?
Well, I've been investigating this for some time, and it was a conversation with Dr. Black a few years ago. I asked Dr. Black about Johnny Cochran. I said, do you have any idea why he got a brain tumor? And he replied almost without hesitation and said it was his cell phone usage. And I even said, Dr. Black, come on. I mean, there's been a lot of studies that show that can't be true. There's no link. And he said, I'm convinced of it. I'm saying the science simply has not caught up. People who use their cell phones a lot, you tend to see it. And at that time, wealthier people, because they're the ones that had cell phones, people who had jobs that required them to be on the cell phones a lot, he's starting to see an uptick in brain tumors in that specific population of people. And like you, Anderson, it's frightening to sort of think about, but that's what he's starting to see as a very busy brain tumor surgeon.
From now, there's no doubt I'm going to change my behavior on this one. Dr. Sanjay Gupta, appreciate it.